Welcome to Coming Home, Survive and Thrive in Homeschooling. I'm Christine, and this week I'm talking about children who might be finding it difficult to settle into the new life of homeschooling. When you leave something behind and start a new adventure, even if it's exciting, there is a transition process involved. When the novelty is over, whether that's on your first day or a few weeks or months in, and you're crying face down on the bed and the children are mad with you, you'll be wondering what the heck you've done and whose stupid idea was this anyway? It was yours, remember? It's time to take stock. First of all, take it easy on yourself, please. Moving from one lifestyle to another takes time. How's that for the Captain Obvious statement of the day? There are always bumps in the road when it's a new road being built. Why are you surprised? The second thing to do is identify the issues. Write them down. It always looks more manageable when there's a list in front of you. Are the children missing their friends? Won't they do their schoolwork? Or are you worried it could be difficult to get back into school, especially private? There are so many possibilities for why you or your children are finding it difficult to settle. Today, it's mainly about the first one. Your children are missing their school friends. There's no easy solution. If there was, there wouldn't be a problem, and I wouldn't be doing this podcast. The third thing to do is revisit your why. Not being happy with what was happening at school is not enough. It's a good start, but you need to have a deeper reason. Why aren't you happy with school? What would happen if school fixed the problem? Or does it lead you to realize it's the philosophy of school, parental authority and delegation? If you said yes, you have a deeper reason. Now you need to understand this philosophy, what removing children from parental influence and authority means, and the outcome, because if school fixes the problem you pulled them out for, you'll send them back to school. And if that's what you want, then fair enough, you know your reason why. I'm not judging the decisions parents make. But if a parent has made an informed decision, then they'll know the possible outcomes, good and bad. All decisions have consequences. It's no secret that removing a child from the influence and authority of parents means the new authority can better shape the child for what the central planners of society have planned, and they have planned. It's hard to see your children unhappy. As parents, we need to make decisions for their benefit, and sometimes that's hard. But you're the adult and they are the child. Your decisions will be made in love over tears, angst, and generous amounts of parental guilt. Don't be surprised at the tumult welling up inside you. You will need support too. And fourthly, what to do. I suggest you do not share this important issue with those who do not support your homeschooling. Even if that is your mum or your best friend, you can talk to them later. In the words of an old saying, do not cast your pearls before swine who will tramp over them. In this situation, the pearls are your precious children, and the swine are the metaphor for those who do not care for them in the same way you do. I am not calling your mum or your best friend swine. This is just metaphor. Talk to other homeschoolers, especially those who've travelled this path before. Early in this process, you need a listener, not advice. At least, not until you ask for it. If you need a homeschooling coach, hire one. Like any good counsellor, they will help you figure out a path without directing you. It's an investment worth making. Arrange times to talk with the children when they're arguing or challenging you. Often, they'll pick the time when you're feeling most vulnerable. That is, when you're tired or upset yourself. After all, he knows you well. This is not a good time to talk. You'll likely say things you'll regret, including giving in to his emotional request or demand. Allow him to have a good cry or be angry, but plan another time to talk it through. Book a time right then for him. In a similar way, I remember watching a friend's children coming up to her and talking in a low voice in her ear, protesting something. Her children knew this was effective because Mum was with a friend and unlikely to get cross, or maybe even give in. It would have been better to stop the child who was interrupting an adult conversation, and if it wasn't urgent, arrange to talk as soon as possible. This unsettling, difficult time has nothing to do with you not loving them. It is emotional blackmail for you to believe her if she says, "If you really loved me, then..." Remember, you are a parent, not a friend. Loving the child sometimes means you don't like her, and vice versa. Needing to be liked by your child is dysfunctional. It's nice, but it is dysfunctional. Parent and friend are two different roles, unable to be filled by the same person. You can still arrange for the children to see their old school friends, but it's important to find new friends in your homeschooling groups and find them fast. Generally, they're a friendly and accepting lot, but you'll need to persevere. If your child is finding it hard to transition, willfully resisting new friendships could become part of his plan to get back to school. You'll need to gradually stop seeing school friends, and I think this will happen as kids form situational friends the same way we do. That is, we tend to make friends according to the groups we are in at the time, and when we move on, our friendships usually do too. We know this, but children think they're going to be best friends forever, so this will be harder for them. Even teenagers tend to find new friends in new groups, although they may need to continue seeing a good friend. In my interview with our eldest son, he talks about this. Our two older were at school for 4 years, so missing friends and making new ones was relevant for us. You can find his interview in podcast number 14. You need to have your spouse in agreement with you. Hopefully, this was in place before you made the decision to apply for the exemption and come home. If you started homeschooling on the understanding of your spouse saying, "Let's see how it goes, you're going to have to prove to me this works," you'll be dealing with "I told you so," and back to school they will go. And you'll probably be needing marriage counselling too. If it helps, choose an audit date to reassess. It's always good to have a mini audit in life, and putting a date in to go over homeschooling goals and changes gives you the mental space to get on with the business of homeschooling. It also gives the child certainty that firstly, you are continuing with homeschooling, and secondly, there is a date when you'll be reassessing. Make it clear it doesn't mean that's when he'll be going back to school, but give everyone a chance to figure out whether or how you'll carry on next year. We used to say we take it on a year-by-year basis when folks would ask with concern how long we were going to homeschool. It was always enough to keep them happy and off our backs. And it was true. If at any time it was not the best option for us, we would have reconsidered our options. However, the longer we homeschooled, the more reassured we were this was the right thing for our family. Earlier in this podcast, I included in the possible list a parent's concern of missing a place in school, especially if your children were in a private school. This came up in a lovely conversation I had this week with a newish homeschooler. I think the first thing would be, do you want your child to go back to school? Did you intend this to be temporary, or are you now thinking about carrying on because you can see the benefits being home has brought? Secondly, if you think you can't do as good a job as the private school, is that true? You'll know by now there are almost endless educational opportunities for homeschooling families. There are other podcasts I have made that deal with this. And thirdly, if the original problem is gone, how do you know it won't come back? Or another mandate. If being made to wear masks was your only concern and no other issues as previously mentioned, then the pull back to school will be strong. However, using the example of masks, we're hearing of policy being continued whenever the government deem it necessary. So I doubt the reason for bringing them home has truly gone away. Whatever is on your list I suggested you write, you'll need to decide what the most important thing for your family is. Understand your why, because on a hard day you're going to need it, and then keep on living it. You can reassess at any time because that's your privilege as a parent. And know this, when you haven't delegated educational responsibility, you'll always have a list to examine and work through. Once you know this, it won't surprise you when uncertainties do crop up. A few minutes ago, I mentioned investing in a homeschool coach if you need one. If you want this, find me on my contact page in my website, cominghomeinfo.org. If you are finding yourself barely surviving in homeschool, I hope this podcast will help steer you to thriving. Please share this podcast. There are other families who are finding it hard settling into their new homeschooling life. That's all from me this week. I'll catch up with you next time. Bye for now.